Good morning, dear students. Today we are going to start the next section, the environment movement, with another committee, that is Kasturi Rangan committee. In the last class, we have learned about Gadgil report, and that is concerned with the conservation of Western Ghats, right? So this Kasturi Rangan committee also have some connection with the former report, that is the Gadgil report. So the you will understand about that as we move through the today's section. Okay, why? What is the need for having such a committee, Kasturi Rangan committee? The reason is that lack of acceptance of Gadgil report, because Gadgil report is not widely accepted. In the absence of wide acceptance, then came another committee, that is Kasturi Rangan committee. Next point is about some points about that committee. It is constituted in 2012, and that committee is headed by Dr. K. Kasturi Rajan. That person is appointed by government, and what the intention is to re-evaluate the Gadgil report. Again, they need to re-examine and to find the flaws in the Gadgil report. And that committee is known as HLWG. HLWG means High Level Working Group. And that committee composed of 10 members. It's about the committee. And what are the aims of that committee? Aim means, first aim is to recommend which are the steps need to adopt to protect the sensitive ecosystem of Western Ghats. The prime aim is to recommend the government some steps, which are the steps need to adopt to protect the sensitive ecosystem of Western Ghats. That's a first aim. Second, another aim is there, and while conserving the sensitive ecosystem of Western Ghats, at the same time they need to satisfy the demands of traditional inhabitants of that region. So, while conserving the biodiversity of Western Ghats, at the same time they need to give due respect to the traditional inhabitants, their demands. So, such type of methods also this committee need to suggest. That is the other. So, which are the two aims? First, just mention what are the steps to protect sensitive ecosystem, and also the next aim is they need to suggest some methods through that methods. At the same time, they can conserve biodiversity as well as the demands of traditional inhabitants. That are the two aims. Then, which are the recommendations made by the Kasturi Rangan committee? They recommend to divide the Western Ghats into two zones. They are natural landscape and cultural landscape. A natural landscape consists of forest and protected area. Natural landscape consists of forest and protected area. Then cultural as the name implies, cultural means it includes all the human settlement, agricultural lands and plantations. So that's about the zonation. And it also, that committee also recommend to reduce the intervention of human in natural landscape. In natural landscape, it's very urgent to stop, to restrict the interventions of human. Only then we can conserve the sanctity or the sensitiveness of that Western Ghats. That is the other recommendation. Okay, next slide. One more recommendation it made, that is, instead of considering the entire Western Ghats as environment sensitive area, it's better to consider only 40 percentage of the Western Ghats. And in that 40 percentage itself located is our 123 villages. So that also need to take into consideration. These are the three recommendations. One, to divide the whole area into natural and cultural landscape. Second one, to reduce or restrict the human interventions in the sensitive area. And third one, instead of considering entire Western Ghats, it's better to consider only 40 percentage of total area sensitivity. Then criticism for this report, this committee, because pros and cons will be there for everything. So, what are the criticism? Criticism, that zonal demarcation, spelling mistake is a demarcation. No problem. Zonal demarcation that they made into natural and cultural area. That zone. It is done by relying remote sensing and aerial survey methods. Remote sensing and aerial survey method. Instead of coming down and examining the ground reality without having physical access to the places, they divide the entire area. They divide or demarcate the Western Ghats area by depending remote sensing and aerial survey method. Remote sensing, if anybody doesn't know, I will explain. Remote sensing, it is we are understanding about the geography of a place using the help of satellite or aircraft based sensor technology, because we are not making any physical contact with the object that we intended to know. We are not making any contact. Instead, by staying somewhere or with the help of other technology, we are assessing about that object. That is remote sensing. Okay. Then that's a one criticism. And the second criticism is that that committee actually envisage a cooperation of inhabitants in conservation. In conserving the Western Ghats, actually the committee first planned to incorporate the cooperation of inhabitants, but actually it is controlled, helmed by bureaucrats and forest officials. That is another criticism. And third one, what is the third criticism? Because of this report, by taking grant of this report, who are benefited? Mining and quarrying lobbies are benefited. That is another criticism, drawback. And also many complaints also raised with respect to this report by farmers and public regarding so many aspects. It's another criticism. That means it is not consensually accepted. Then also this report excludes, exempt actually sensitive areas. Some actually ecologically sensitive area is excluded according to this report. At the same time, they included other area. Actually, those areas are non-sensitive. They include ecologically some non-sensitive area in place of actually sensitive area. These are the drawbacks. Then, because by considering the drawbacks and criticism, another committee also came into origin, that is Women Be Women Committee. And they present another report, but that report too was more hampering the Western Ghats ecosystem. So, it's not accepted that too. Okay. That's about that Kasturi Dangan committee. Next, we are going to learn about Ramsar sites. What is this? It is an intergovernmental treaty. Treaty means Udambadi. An intergovernmental treaty that took place in February 2, 1971 in the Iranian city of Ramsar on the southern shore of Caspian Sea. It's a place of origin. And the name of the convention, it is written as Convention of Wetland. That convention, its name was Convention of Wetland, but it is popularly called Ramsar Convention. In that convention, the name of that convention, it was given as Convention of Wetland, but in public, popularly it is known as Ramsar Convention. How it got that name, everything we will understand as go through the remaining points. What is the mission to conserve wetland? That is Ramsar. The very hearing of that term, the point, the thing that need to come to our mind is something relating to wetland. Ramsar means wetland. Ramsar means wetland. It's a conservation of wetland. Okay. So its mission is to conserve or wise use of wetlands through local, regional, national actions and international cooperation. And they also marked the February 2 as World Wetlands Day. We also organize so many programs on this World Wetlands Day, that is on February 2nd. We need to memorize this day. Wetlands, according to Article 1 of that convention, what is wetland? Wetland means what? They are areas of marsh area, and it's filled with peatland. Peatland means what? Peatland means it is the area in which, because of so much water logged, the decomposition of plants is not takes place completely and lead to a different appearance. I will show you what is peatland. Peatlands means extreme waterlogged condition. Because of that waterlogged condition, it prevents the complete decomposition of plant material. As a result of that, the production of organic matter, it exceeds the rate of decomposition. That means it accumulates. And that results in the accumulation of peat. Peat, what is peat? Peat means it's a partial decomposition of vegetable matter. Clear? That is peatlands. Then we are telling about what is wetland according to Article 1 of that convention. Wetlands are marshes. It can be a peatland or water. It can be natural or artificial. It can be permanent or temporary. And also it can be static or flowing, fresh or brackish. All the conditions are prevailing. Salty and also marine, and the depth of which at low tide does not exceed 6 meters, because in low tide time it depth will not exceed more than 6 meters. All these are features of a wetland. So they are giving many what many features of a place that we can consider as wetland. All these are characteristics of a wetland. Okay, next slide. Say picture of a wetland. That Ramsar site, Ramsar Convention, and it is kind to exist in 1975, and by January 2016 it become more flourished, it more developed, more it spread more, and it have members included members from 169 it includes 169 states, and that means 169 states have membership in that convention from all the parts of the world. That much flourished that Ramsar convention. What is the crux of that convention? Crux means the main part main duty means it is main intention is to make a list of the wetlands of international importance. Which are the wetland having some international importance? They need to make a list out of that. And those wetlands, those sites are called Ramsar sites. And that Ramsar site, it includes how many wetlands are considered as Ramsar site? 2,220 wetlands are considered as Ramsar site, and totally it occupies an area of 240 million hectares. That must be. Next, we are going to see for considering a wetland or to include a wetland in Ramsar site list, it should satisfy certain criteria, certain features. The features I am going to tell you. It should contain whatever site we are considering. It should contain a representative or a rare or unique natural or aquatic habitat. A rare or unique, natural or near natural aquatic habitat should be present in that wetland. That is first criteria. Second, the whatever place we are taking into consideration, it should support what? Support vulnerable or endangered or critically endangered ecological communities. It should support such community. That a type should be a Ramsar site. Third one, what? It should contain what? Contain populations of plants and animals which are important in maintaining the biodiversity of a biogeographical area. Whatever plants and animals present in that considered area, it must be important in maintaining the biodiversity of that biogeographical area. That is the other criteria. Then coming to the next, the considered site should be a refuge site. Refuge site means abhayasthanam. Refuge site for any plant or animal species. It should be a refuge site. Without that site, there is chance that a particular plant or animal may extinct. So it should be a refuge site. Next criteria, it should support at least 1% of global population of water birds. The area that we consider should support at least 1% of global population of water birds. And what's the last criteria? It should be a critical habitat for native fishes to complete their life histories, for completing their life cycle. That considered area should be critical. Without that habitat, that native fishes, if they cannot complete their life history, then that is a criteria for including in the list of Ramsar site. These are the criteria. Okay. Next, in India, when it becomes more familiar, when it get more familiarization, when it is more flourished, it was by 1st February 1982. 1st February 1980. By this date, it gained more important or popularized in India. And the first Ramsar site in the beginning phase, which are the Ramsar site from India, Khilado Khana wetland in Faradpur, that is on Rajasthan, and Chilka Lake in Orissa. They are designated as Ramsar site in 1981. And by August 2020, India has 37 recognized Ramsar site. That is about the Ramsar site and Ramsar convention. Okay, clear. We come through what is Ramsar site, what's the name of that convention, how that convention happened, what is their main duty, what's the crux of that Ramsar convention, and which are the criterias, and what about the our role in the Ramsar site, in that list. All these things we have came through now till now. Next is anti-reclamation movements in Kerala. Anti-reclamation movements. Which are the anti-reclamation movements that took place in Kerala that we are going to see? First is Aranmula Airport project. We are all familiar with that project. We have come across this news in many newspapers at that time. So we are going to see what happened, what are the issues that orient around that project. What about the project? It is an airport project planned to build at Aranmula in the Pathanamthitta district of Kerala in India. Its coverage, planned area yeah, should be no. That planned area to execute the project, the airport construction, is about 700 acres of land, and the estimate cost is about 20 billion rupees, too much high. Then how the caution means cancellation of the approval for that project. How the caution happened? When the time onwards it is proposed to build a airport project in Aranmula, they started protest from the side of environmentalists and political activists of the Kerala. Environmentalists, also politicians, protest against the execution or this beginning of the construction of the Aranmula airport project. They all protested, and as a result, National Green Tribunal verdict. It declared that Aranmula airport project is a violation of environmental requirements. It is violating the natural environmental requirements. And following this verdict, Supreme Court of India ratified. Ratified means it accept this order. This order means this National Green Tribunal verdict order, and forced the government of India to withdraw the sanction for the construction of the airport. There's the general general events happened throughout the period in the construction of the Aranmula airport project. And in the coming points, we are going to see step by step what are the events happen in the course of the that decision to construct an Aranmula airport project. Proposed after effects on environment. Which are the after effects that the environmentalists, they are thinking that if an airport is constructed in Aranmula, they are expecting some impacts in the environment. Which are those impacts that we are going to see? If we need to consider, if for constructing that Aranmula project, so much area need to be filled with the earth for the implementation of the project. So much area. For filling those area with earth, need to level so many nearby hills. It's also harming or dismantling the ecological balance. And the third one, near to that proposed site, located the famous Parthasarathi temple, only 200 meters away from the project site. And if an airport came there, surely it may hamper the sanctity and serenity and also the rich heritage of that temple. The protest, how the protest start? It start with a satyagraha, indefinite satyagraha. On 10th February 2014, where in Aranmula Heritage, under the leadership of Aranmula Heritage Village Action Council. And who lead that Satyagraha? Led by great Malayalam poet and environmentalist Sugata Kumari. And for this Satyagraha, solidarity was proposed by many people from different arenas like politicians, trade unions, writers, environmentalists, nature lovers, religious leaders, so many persons, so many eminent personalities from different sectors came, and they proposed, they are showing they unite, they give support for this protest against the Aranmula airport project. Okay, next. And they got an interim stay first. It is on interim means it's on the first phase stay against the construction of the project that happened on April 2030, and it is secured by the National Green Tribunal Act. According to that stay, it banned any type of construction at the site, and also because of that stay, it stayed the government order for converting 500 acres of land for industrial purpose. That order also stayed because of this stay. And then they succeed in getting an environmental clearance for the airport project. From where it got that environmental clearance? From the Ministry of Environment and Forest, New Delhi, on 19 November 2013. But this time also, that National Green Tribunal, they work against that clearance, and they cancel that environmental clearance on 28th May 2014. And all these protests led to the abandoning of the Aranmula International Airport finally. Okay, that's about the that issue, Aranmula International Airport related issue, and all the things that happened associated with this. Next, mangrove conservation movement in Kerala. Mangrove, we are very familiar with this. We learned about the significance, what are the importance of the mangrove. All these things we have learned in some other chapters in this semester itself. So now we are going to learn about the mangrove conservation movement in Kerala. First, I am telling about the place that is notable for mangrove. It's in Kannur district of Kerala. It has a huge, uh, huge area is there in Kannur, having a continuous stretch of mangroves. Especially it is on Yeram, on the banks of Parangadi River. What is the coverage? 500 acres are covered with the mangrove forest there. What's the significance of this mangrove? It is a natural shield against flood, erosion, salination, and natural calamities like a tsunami. And because of the mangrove, that's why even in summer, this village is having a cool, gentle breeze. It's very soothing breeze even in summer because of the big collection of mangroves along its coast. That the neglection is there. Because of neglection, mangrove forest its will start to dwindle, and then begin that movement. And that movement is initiated by an educationally backward. He had only say education till second standard, and backward man. That means that is what it is telling, that educationally backward man, Kallan Pukkudan. He realizes the significance of mangroves initially. He uh, he realizes that red signal, and as against that distraction, for the destruction of this mangrove for the purpose of many developmental activities, he started to plant and nourish tiny mangrove trees along the shores. Initially, his activities earned only humiliation. Everybody teased at him on seeing his activities, but he continued his solo fight. Within 2 years, all the saplings that he planted grew up and covered a kilometer, which drew attention of the forest department. Then only the forest department paid an attention towards his initiation, his initiative. Okay. Then the state forest department also start to work in collaboration with him by setting up a mangrove nursery and also for organizing some public awareness campaign about mangroves. The effort of Kallan Pokudan then start to spread towards more people and all the people started to resist against destruction of mangroves. And he founded, Kallan Pokudan founded the mangrove school, and he conducted almost 500 classes in various parts of the state, even if he is educationally backward, that we need to consider. And he published a few books also about mangroves with the help of some aids. And Shiva Prasad, film director, he made a film about the Pokudan's life. It's about that moment. Next, we are going to learn about Kerala State Biodiversity Board. Okay. Before that, first we need to understand what is the Biological Diversity Act 2002. That act is meant for the conserving and also sustainable utilization of biodiversity, because from the name of that act itself it's clear that it is for protecting the biodiversity for equitable sharing of its benefits arising out of the uses of biodiversity and its components. Only these things, it is meant for conserving and sustainable utilization of biodiversity. Okay, and the government of India form a national biodiversity authority. It formed a national biodiversity authority because of the provision of this act, Biological Diversity Act 2002. And then came the Biological Diversity Rules 2004, and gaining support of that act came into form the next, that is the state biodiversity boards. State biodiversity boards start to originate by taking legal support out of the Biological Diversity Rules 2004. So the first one, the Biological Diversity Act 2002, based on or relaying that act came into origin the National Biodiversity Authority, and then came the Biological Diversity Rules 2004, and gaining legal support out of this rule came into force, that is the State Biodiversity Boards. The major responsibility of the State Biodiversity Board, which are the responsibilities, to advise the state government about the matters related to conserve the biodiversity. What are the matters need to care for conserving the biodiversity, that they need to advise the state government for and also for sustainable utilization of its components, components of the biodiversity. Relating with all these things, they need to advise the state government. And also they need to regulate commercial utilization of biodiversity. Commercial means we need to make benefit out of biodiversity. At the same time, we need to sustain. That's a regulate the commercial utilization of biodiversity. And also to establish biodiversity management committee at 3 levels. 3 levels means at Grama Panchayat level, Block Panchayat level, and District Panchayat level. That Biodiversity Management Council, or committee, it should promote conservation, sustainable use, and also to document the biological diversity, which include preservation of habitat and preparation of biodiversity register. So preparing a register is very important. Register relating with the available biodiversity of a particular area. Next, then came the Kerala State Biodiversity Board, KSBB. It is an autonomous body. Autonomous body is self-regulating body of government of Kerala. It came into existence following the State Biodiversity Act 2008. After that act came into origin the Kerala State Biodiversity Board. One more act is there supporting the formation of Kerala State Biodiversity Board, that is the National Biological Diversity Act 2002. It is a major responsibility of this Kerala State Biodiversity Board. Here also to prepare biodiversity register at each local self-government body with active participation of local communities. So local communities are important in creating or developing a biodiversity register. Main activities are, what are their main activities? Habitat conservation, preservation of land races, and also to assess which are the food varieties, and also which are the domesticated stocks, and which are the animal breeds, and also for documenting the traditional knowledge of medicinal plants. So that means um, traditional means there are some knowledge that we are having over generation after generation, that is actually confined to us itself. So that's a traditional knowledge. So that knowledge also need to document. That's another activity. Register, that register of biodiversity, it stay as a baseline data, and based on that data we're actually setting up management strategies and action plans. Action plans about in what way we need to conserve the biodiversity of a particular area. Next came the People Biological Diversity Register, PBR. What is PBR? They're actually biodiversity registers itself. Then why is it specifically called People Biological Diversity Register? Because yeah, for developing such registers, it involved active participation of local inhabitants. So it is called People's Biodiversity Register. What are its objective? First, to regulate access to biological resources. Access to biological resources need to regulate. And next, to conserve the sustainable use of biological diversity. Third one, to respect and protect the knowledge of local community. Local community have some knowledge. We need to respect and also to protect that knowledge. The next one is to secure the sharing of benefits with the local people, because that we need to share the benefits that we are gaining out of biodiversity with the local people. Then the last one, if we identify any area with good biological diversity, first we need to declare it as a biological diversity heritage site. Then only we can conserve or develop that area. That's the last objective. Okay, with this we finish this chapter in today's section. Thank you.